Hey, welcome everyone to today's webinar, Money Matters, Busting Legal Myths About Personal Credit, Debts, and More. I'm Judy, and I'm a staff lawyer here at the Centre for Public Legal Education Alberta, or CPLEA for short. We also have Jessica, artist and designer from our team in the background, and she will be putting up links in the chat and highlighting visual exhibits throughout the webinar. CPLEA is a nonprofit organization serving all of Alberta, and our goal is to make the law understandable for Albertans through our various booklets, tip sheets, videos, webinars, websites, and more. So before we start, we want to thank our funders, the Alberta Law Foundation, the Department of Justice Canada, and the Alberta Real Estate Foundation for making initiatives like this possible today. We also respectfully acknowledge that we are located across Treaty 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10 territories, and respect the histories, languages, and cultures of First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and all First Peoples of Canada, whose presence continues to enrich our communities. Quick disclaimer here, this webinar today contains legal information only and not legal advice, and also with some touches of pop culture, so viewer beware. And to set the tone for today's webinar, I want to start with a quote from Morgan Housel's book, Psychology of Money. By the way, this is not a sponsored segment or an affiliate link, just a really good quote. Everything has a price, and the key to a lot of things with money is just figuring out what that price is and be willing to pay it. The problem is that the price of a lot of things is not obvious until you've experienced them firsthand when the bill is overdue. So today, we're busting common myths about money and consumer law, hopefully to help you or someone you know from getting into problems with money in the first place or when the bill is overdue. So with me, I have Yves Bouchy from Money Mentors. Yves has been a certified credit counselor with Money Mentors for 7 years. She previously worked in the bankruptcy and insolvency industry for 12 years. And prior to that, she was a lender with 3 different lending institutions and a finance manager with a dealership. She is passionate about helping Albertans improve their financial situation. This is not our first time at the rodeo, I'd say. Even I did a webinar years ago, Got Debt, alongside Judith Hainbury, KC King's Counsel, who launched the Consumer Debt Negotiation Project, now operating out of the Edmonton Community Legal Center. So I'm very grateful to have you join us here again today, Yves. So let's first get started with Money Mentors. Can you briefly explain your organization for everyone that's watching today?
For sure. Thanks for having me here today. It's a pleasure. Money Mentors, we are an Alberta-based, not-for-profit organization. We actually are coming up on celebrating our 29th year this summer. So we're very happy about that. We provided services to Albertans for that length of time. Our mission is to provide free money coaching, credit counseling, and financial education to anyone needing supports. Then in addition to that, we are the sole provider and manager of the Government of Alberta's legislated program known as OPD, or Orderly Payment of Debt. That program's been active since the mid-'80s when our provincial government created it, and we've been managing that since the mid-'90s.
Perfect. Thank you, Yves. So let's dive right into our myths. So we'll start off with some myths about legislation and contracts that we hear about. So this one here, when I buy something or borrow money, there's no laws that apply to me except for the purchase contract or loan agreement.
Yeah, there are laws that apply to consumers that are not limited to the contract or the agreement. There's consumer protection guidelines. And as a consumer, you have rights under certain laws that protect you from unfair practices and ensure clear agreements, but they also protect the lenders too. Loan agreements, for example, it's critical that you have a written loan agreement to protect both parties, ensuring terms are clear and enforceable. And then the legal rights that come with that, there's laws governing various actions, including borrowing money and protecting your rights as a consumer, understanding the aspects that help you be informed in your decisions and protect your interest in financial matters.
All right, I'm really glad you explained that, Eve, from your perspective. This is a misconception we see all the time that many people think once I sign a contract, that's it. And the only rules that apply are whatever is written in the agreement, but contracts don't exist in a vacuum. There's actually a whole set of money-related laws that still apply, whether you know about them or not. So we like to make things and concepts stick with people. So Jessica, let's pull up an exhibit here to visually show folks how we could think about this. So it's like Monopoly. You might think the only rule that matters is whatever deal you made to buy Mediterranean Avenue or maybe Boardwalk. But the game only works because there's whole rules behind it. And what happens when you land somewhere or what happens if you can't pay. And the contract is just one piece. The rules are what makes the systems work. You've already mentioned it, but one of the major ones is the Consumer Protection Act. I could tell you it's a pretty lengthy one. It's a 156-page law. And the law sets the ground rules for how businesses can treat consumers. So even if you sign a contract, a business can't use unfair practices like misleading claims or high pressure tactics. It also has rules for many types of contracts, including door-to-door sales, internet sales contracts, prepaid contracts, and energy contracts. There are also more specific rules in the regulations depending on the situation. So for things like payday loans, which we'll talk about in a little bit, online purchases, or even collection practices. So the law actually gets quite detailed, and some issues go beyond contracts entirely. I do want to mention here, for example, the criminal code covers things like fraud or illegal interest rates. So if something crosses that line, it's no longer just a contract or consumer issue. Even there's rules about enforcing debt. So if a court says someone owes money, you can't just go collect it yourself. There's a legal process under the Civil Enforcement Act, and only licensed agencies can take those steps. And there's also laws that deal with what happens when people can't pay their debts. So the Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act sets out how the process works, who's involved, what the consequences are, and how debts can be addressed legally. And of course, the one last piece that people often don't think about are time limits under the Limitations Act. So in many cases, you have only about 2 years to bring a claim, and after that, you may lose the ability to enforce your rights. Fun fact about Monopoly that no one really needs to know, as we discovered this morning, but the Monopoly man or Mr. Monopoly does not wear a monocle in official standard depictions, except for in the European Junior edition of the game. So for Monopoly fans out there, it's actually a collective hallucination of our childhood memories if you remember him depicted with one. This is a psychological phenomenon known as the Mandela effect. But anyhow, the real big takeaway is this. When you're dealing with money, you're not just dealing with a contract, you're operating within a broader legal framework, and those laws are there to help protect consumers. So we'll move on here, Eve, with a little bit of a scenario explanation, and I want you to chip in on this. So many folks have probably been in this situation before where they have a consumer contract in front of them. So for example, a purchase contract for goods or a service agreement. What are some thoughts about what do you think people should be looking for when they're reviewing a contract?
Well, honestly, if you're someone that doesn't understand, as you mentioned, legalese
Yeah.
with you, that can go through the document with and don't feel rushed to sign anything,
Yeah.
make sure that you understand every section of that contract and the liabilities on your part and what could happen should you not pay the contract as agreed.
Yeah.
It's critical to understand how that works, depending on the province you're in. And in Alberta, you know, you need to make sure that you're understanding what's put in front of you.
Yeah, exactly. And some other things too I would add on is, think about what are you actually agreeing to pay, right? Including your fees and interest. What are the timelines involved? Because I feel like people sometimes get tripped up with timelines as well. When do you have
Very
to
much.
pay or receive something, right? Can you cancel it? And if so, how does that work? There are also some protections built into the law. For example, certain contracts have cooling off periods where you could cancel within a set time, but those only apply in very specific situations. So you can't assume you'll always have that option depending on what type of contract that is. So really key takeaway here is that contracts matter, even if they're long, even if they're boring, even if they're full of legal language, or if you sign them online, and you should at least know what you're getting into. And as Eve mentioned, really trying to understand it with help if you need it.
Absolutely. And one more little tidbit is like a lot of people that get into vehicle loans, I've had clients tell me, oh yeah, like I have 4 years left. And I'm looking at the balance on the loan and what their payment is. I'm like, are you sure? Because lots of times they think they're in a 4 or 5 year term and it turns out it's like a 7 or an 8 year term. And that can cause like financial hardship down the road if you don't know how long it's for. Also understanding that if you're able to pay it off faster without penalty is a big pointer for legal contracts too, because some contracts don't allow you to pay it off more fast and complete it sooner without a penalty. So making sure you know that in the contract documents as well.
Yeah, great tips there. So we're going to move on to talking about myths about different forms of debt. So the one that I have here, I'll read this out to you. It's okay to have some credit card debt. It's helping build my credit score.
Okay, so ideally, if you charge on a credit card, you want to pay it in full by the due date. There are lots of consumers out there that are carrying balances on credit cards, and there are lots of people that think that that builds their credit. It can actually hinder your credit score if you owe more than 30% of the limit that you have, carrying that balance through a billing cycle. So we always err on the side of if you charge on your credit card, you should pay it in full by the due date. If you do need to carry a balance beyond a billing cycle date, try and make sure it's less than 30% of your limit to help keep your score solid. Otherwise, you could lose points off your credit bureau score.
Hey, good tip there. We're going to move on about a scenario explanation about BNPL, otherwise known as buy now, pay later. So a lot of online retailers now have a BNPL option on their websites, often with 0% interest-free payments. It seems very convenient, and people seem to be using it more these days. And I hear that I believe millennials and Gen Z are some of the biggest customer groups using this type of option. So why not? What are your thoughts on this, Eve?
Well, when I found out there's even grocery stores using it now, that really raised alarm for me because if you can't afford to buy the groceries, which so many people are struggling in our economy today to, manage just the cost of living, um, you're not going to be able to afford the outcome if you fall behind on that. Buy now, pay laters, yes, they're enticing. They offer that 0%. But again, read through the documentation because if you don't pay on time, things change. And then there can be cost incurred. And if you just abandon that debt thinking, oh, well, it's just an online whatever, they
Mhm.
can actually sell that debt off to a collection agency and pursue you legally.
Yeah.
So, and it just spells trouble. If you can't afford to buy the item, maybe just save up in your savings account what you can afford over time and pay cash for that item. The more you put off like the layaway perspective, the more it ends up costing you, even if there isn't an interest rate, because it's there and it's looming in the background of a debt that you've got to clear.
Yeah. Really good practical tips for folks. And Jessica, let's pull an exhibit here about BNPL just to illustrate how pervasive this is. So here's a sampling of storefronts from a well-known buy now, pay later platform with over 2,500 participating retailers. Certainly has grown over the years. So what you'll see on these with this option, well, there's lots of furniture retailers now, clothing, cosmetics, household appliances, shoes, travel, vacations, flowers, aromatherapy, and you get into more niche categories now too, with like luxury handbags, vintage style gowns, vintage guitars, car tuner parts, fondue equipment. Believe it or not, non-toxic natural Play-Doh, and even the more unexpected too. Retailers selling decorative skulls, all sorts of magic and spells. So you could BNPL apparently tarot card readings now, and literally a goddess-style legendary sword. So the market coverage is pretty widespread now, and people can BNPL lifestyles, aspirational or otherwise, or just trying to get by with their everyday lives. And what people sometimes don't realize is that you're essentially getting into a loan agreement. And as you've already mentioned, really cautionary tale here, be careful. We also have a CPLEA article on the topic on Buy Now, Pay Later, and you could read that in your own time to learn more about some of the legal issues with BNPL. Okay, so next one here. Eve, what do you think about this myth? I want to borrow money from a lender and they can charge whatever interest rate they want. Or can they?
Okay, so depending on if it's a chartered bank or a payday lender or an online quick loan, the interest rates are going to vary. In January 2025, the criminal rate of interest was reduced to 35% from a staggering 60%. Now, 35% in my mind is still insane. Like it's insane. And in most cases, it's compounding monthly interest. So really you're paying more than that at the end of the day. They there is laws in place to protect consumers from predatory lending, like the criminal rate being capped at the 35%. So that's good that there is that kind of protection. So I guess no, they can't charge whatever interest rate they want, but again, it depends on what level of lender you're looking to borrow from.
Yeah, exactly. And really, it reinforces the point that interest rates can be high, right? But they're not unlimited. Another point that I do want to bring up too is that here in Alberta, if a lender is charging 32% or more per year, including fees, they actually need a special high cost credit license and have to follow pretty strict rules. And also another thing is that lenders can't hide the real cost of borrowing. There's this, they have to clearly tell you the total cost, including fees, before you sign. So that's part of a disclosure requirement there. So really takeaway is lenders do have flexibility, but it's not a free-for-all. Okay, so we'll move on to a scenario explanation about payday loans. So let's say I'm in a tight financial spot and I need access to some quick money right away. Unfortunately, I don't have anyone to fall back on. And those payday lenders seem pretty tempting sometimes. It seems like it's maybe more immediately available than other lending options. So what are your thoughts on this, Eve?
Although a quick pre-approved payday loan in a pinch can seem appealing, things to consider are, first of all, how much you'll pay back in interest along with fees. You have to think through, can you easily pay that off on your next 2 to 4 paydays and still cover current expenses during that period? I like to call them the never-ending payday loan because typically when you borrow, for example, $500 because an unexpected expense hit you, you're borrowing that $500, but then on payday, they want it back plus that interest charge. So now let's say you're paying back $570. Where the problem comes in is if your budget truly can't afford to live without that $70, you're just turning around and refinancing it over and over and over again, and then you never really see the light of day. And I've even seen clients where they get into a cycle where that one payday loan tipped them over the edge. So then they borrowed from another payday place and then another one. And sometimes we can see people with 23 different, if not more, online payday lenders. And it's a very stressful mode to be living in because your payday, when you get paid, there's 15 payments coming out and you're spinning and you can't afford to pay your bills. Then you're getting NSF fees. Like it just snowballs so badly. So I always try to encourage people, if you don't have a family member that you could reach to or a friend you trust to help you fix the temporary situation, look at other things in your budget. For example, if you haven't paid your cable or your cell phone bill yet, perhaps reach out to those lenders or those bill providers and say, hey, could I possibly pay half this payday and half on my next payday? Yes, you might pay a penalty of say $3 or something like that, but that's a lot better than getting into a loan that's 35% compounding interest that potentially could just see you, drown. Another idea that you could look at is Is there anything in your home that's not got sentimental value attached to it that you could make a quick sale on Marketplace to get money in another way so that you can avoid that payday lending potential? And the final thing is passive income. Could you possibly go out and shovel some snow, or post on your local community page offering dog waste pickup just to get some quick cash? Or even I see a lot of people on the social media pages, hey, wondering if anyone has some bags of bottles that they're okay parting with, I've had a vet bill come up or whatever. Any of those little passive income ways you can earn some extra cash to avoid the interest of the payday lending, I would like lean you that way all day long.
Okay, really excellent tips there, Eve. And just for folks to know, we do actually have resources at CPLEA on payday loans if you want to learn more about the legal side of things there. So let's dive into some myths about hot or emerging consumer issues. So Eve, you just mentioned passive income streams. I want to take this as an opportunity to talk about self-employment and also gig workers. So according to Statistics Canada, the proportion of workers in Alberta that are self-employed is 16%. That's a 2021 stat. And those doing gig work as their main job is the highest actually in Alberta out of all the provinces. There's some news floating around that this might, the stat might even be higher. Maybe you also have more experience working with clients to know how pervasive this actually is. So let's say I operate a small business or start a side gig to earn some passive income, or and maybe follow some get rich ideas online. There seems to be a lot of those online floating around these days. No problems with that at all, right?
Well, there can be. You have to be very, very careful if you're like on TikTok or Insta or social media of any kind and you're seeing these kind of get rich quick kind of ideas. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Be very cautionary. Do your research if you're looking at, where you have to pay a $30 fee to somebody to get information to earn the passive income. Like, just really do your research. There's a lot of them out there, especially on TikTok, where they're showing the little stints of them making money just on their laptop sitting in Mexico, and they can show you how to do it. Well, that's how they're making their money, because they're getting a fee from you and they're just showing you what they're doing, which is like it's pyramid, it's multi-level marketing, right? But on the other side of that too, to consider, like, we do have a lot more people that are doing gig works right now. Even than 2021. 2021, the pandemic brought out Instacart. It brought out, the Uber shopping more and all those things. So lots of people are resorting to passive income streams like those kind of things. And, Instacart, Uber Eats, any of those sorts of stuff, they have contracts for you to sign as well. So read through it, be sure you know what you're getting into and that it's going to work for your situation. But yeah, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So always, always research, talk to people before you send money or commit to something.
Yeah, and I'd also like to add, from also a legal perspective, that's one thing to keep in mind, is also separating personal and business risk. If you have a side gig or are self-employed, a corporation is treated as its own legal person, has its own debts, its own property, its own liability. So in that sense, business owners aren't usually personally responsible for the corporation's debts. But a sole proprietorship is different. There's no separation. Business and the person are the same. So if the business owes money, you're doing something that owes money, creditors can actually go after your own personal assets if you don't have that legal protection of incorporation, which creates a legal buffer. So without it, you could personally be on the hook. And we often hear from our community legal partners working on the ground that small business owners don't really understand the separation between a corporation and individual until they actually get into legal trouble with their business dealings. So if you're self-employed, have a side gig, really don't try to wing it, please. Know what your legal rights and responsibilities are, and don't hesitate to get legal help before problems actually come up with your side gig or your passive income activities. So
Absolutely.
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So next one here, Eve.
Due to unexpected technical difficulties, We have been scammed out of the full discussion about scams. But here's a quick recap. Judy asked Eve about her thoughts on scams, as some people think they are immune to scams because they think they are smart or savvy enough. Eve talks about how scammers are really good at their jobs. They are, in fact, professional scammers. Judy says that we should all assume that people are out to get us then. Judy and Eve both talk about how understanding your rights and being alert to scams can keep you safe. So if you're in immediate physical danger or getting suspicious requests for money, call police immediately. Check your credit report annually to make sure that there has been no fraudulent activity. Become aware of common scams. The Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre keeps a list of scams affecting Canadians. Do not respond to unsolicited requests for personal information. You should also take steps to protect your personal information, particularly online. If you or someone you know is a victim of a scam, report it to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. Also, get legal advice right away. The remaining discussion is about common scams that Eve sees in her work. One of the most common scams that she sees in her work is cryptocurrency or investment scams, where scammers convince people to send money to get returns on their so-called investment.
Next one here, let's chat about myths about debt problems. So what do you think about this one? Small tax debts and fines. So for example, a traffic violation is really no big deal if you don't pay them.
Oh, well, for traffic fines and such, you could end up losing your license. They may not renew unless you pay. And if you're someone that needs to drive for your job or to work or whatever, that can cause some pretty hard setbacks. Um, Tax debt, it's very important that you deal with it because there's penalty and it's interest bearing, and the government interest rate is not, not something you can smile at. It's fairly steep. Plus, Revenue Canada can do other things. They don't need a court order sometimes. They can just freeze your bank accounts. They can put writs against your properties, different things like that. So it's not something you want to just ignore. You need to deal with all kinds of debt.
Yeah, that's really good. So really the takeaway I'm gathering from this is, small debts don't really stay small if you ignore them, right? So better to deal with them early, right? Rather than letting enforcement and these more harsher measures kick in. All right, so our next myth here, I'll explain a bit of a scenario about taking on debt for another person. So maybe a loved one, family member, or friend, kind of help a buddy or family member out situation. And a person might be thinking that they're doing this out of the goodness of their own heart to take on the debt for another person. It won't go wrong, would it?
It so can go wrong. There's a famous saying out there, don't lend money to friends or family. And there's a reason that exists because it causes hurt feelings, it causes falling outs. Usually when a family member helps out another family member or a friend, it's open-ended. It's like, yeah, pay me back when you can, right? And then, a month could go by, 2 months go by, you see them buying stuff, and now you're kind of getting hurt feelings because they haven't reached out to you about, hey, I want to pay you this much on this date, right? So it can really be a battle and a struggle. So it's important that if you're going to loan money to a friend or a family member, to have an actual written contract, come to an agreement of, all right, I'm going to help you out with this $1,000. How are we going to deal with this? How are you going to pay me back? Do we want there to be an interest rate? And then create a paperwork that has both your names listed and holds each of you accountable to the terms, whether it's a monthly payment plan with 0% interest or, 2%, or it's, hey, you've got 12 months to pay me this back. I don't care if it's a monthly payment or a lump sum or whatever. It's always good to get it in writing and have a neutral party witness it for you.
Hey, that's excellent. And these are the types of situations where good intentions could turn into real financial risk. That's what you're saying here. And I think from another perspective, if you co-sign, guarantee a loan, or share an account, yeah, at least under the law, you're legally taking on that debt. So if the other person, can't pay, the lender's going to come after you. And that's going to, of course, snowball and can affect your own credit, right? So
Absolutely.
if you're putting your name on someone else's debt, you have to treat it as your own because legally it is.
And if you co-sign a product for somebody, it's going to show on both of your credit reports. And if you yourself decide, like let's say you co-signed a 5-year loan for a family member, they're paying it. But let's say 2 years down the road, you go in because you want to trade in your vehicle or you're looking at buying a house or something like that. The lender's going to count that vehicle payment or that loan payment in your own debt servicing, even though that other party's paying it, because they don't know, they don't have a crystal ball for the future that what if that person stops paying it? Now you've got to pay that. So it's going to count against you in more than just your credit rating. It's going to count in your lendability as well.
Okay, yes, excellent perspective there, Yves. So we'll move on to another scenario explanation about a situation where perhaps a person is owing a lot of money to a debtor, and the collection agency wants to collect their debt. Are collection practices like what you see on TV or the movies, for example, knocking on doors, harassing people at work? Sounds a little bit menacing, but in some cultures, there may be even this perception that they can go after family members or even resort to physical acts of violence to settle debt. So what are your thoughts on this?
Well, in Canada, thank goodness that's not the case. There are specific laws in place for collection activity, and even in Alberta, we have some guidelines and rules for that. Collection agencies, some will say some pretty harsh things. I've had clients call me and say they're telling me they're going to show up at my neighbor's door, that sort of thing. There are payday lenders from Quebec and Ontario that are not licensed to lend in Alberta, and it's typically those ones that are acting like loan shark mentality when they're on the phone with the client if the client's behind on payments. Most of it's false. Like they can't do any of that, and honestly, it's harassment for some of the things that they're actually saying to the client. No, they cannot show up at your door and just walk in and take your stuff. No, they can't put you in jail. That's a common one that we hear. You're going to get arrested. Do you really want to go to jail? They're not going to be able to go after your wife or your mom. They can only go after the person that's legally liable for the debt. They can call your employer. They can call your residence. They can call the references that are listed. But at the end of the day, a collection agency, if they cannot, they'll try hard. They're kind of like a commission salesperson, for lack of a better word. If you're not paying the original lender might sell that debt off to that collection agency just to wash their hands of it. The collection agency buys it from anywhere from 7 cents to 30 cents on the dollar, then turns around and pursues you for the full balance of the debt. That's how they make their money. So they're going to be aggressive because they get paid commission on the funds they collect. Okay, so just keep that in mind if you're getting harassed. Make sure to look up the consumer protection laws for collection activity as well to know your rights. But yeah, they can't do the stuff like we see on TV.
Okay, that's good to know. Definitely more reassuring now for folks. And I do want to say here that we actually do have a lot of resources at CPLEA Financial Start. What do you think about that, Yves?
Okay, well, There's 3 legislative programs available to Albertans, and bankruptcy is one of those programs. There's a lot of misconception related to bankruptcy, and it's different for every single person that journeys down that road. You'll have people coming out of the woodwork, oh, when I went bankrupt, I got to keep my house and I didn't have to pay for it. That's not true. Or you'll have, I got to keep everything and pay nothing. There is a fee associated with bankruptcy. There is a huge hit to your credit. As a first-time bankrupt, you're in bankruptcy for a minimum of 9 months to 21 months if you do all your duties and pay what you're supposed to. And then it stays on your credit for 6 years after that. So it's not an immediate fresh start. There's work to do at the end of it to rebuild your credit and get you back where you needed to be.
All right. So it sounds like bankruptcy sounds like it can offer a fresh start, but it's not a reset button with no consequences.
Yeah, it's not an instant reset. There's obligations, there's paperwork you have to fill out, there's payments you have to pay. And that's another thing. A lot of people are like, well, I can't afford to pay my debt. If I'm going bankrupt, why do I have to pay something?
Yeah.
Well, the trustee has to have his services paid for, right? Plus, under the Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act, there are rules and guidelines. If you earn a certain amount of money, you pay back to your debt. If you own more than the average bearer for the exemptions, you have to pay their value to keep them, right? So it's different, it's unique for each person's case, but definitely work to be done. It's not just a bing and you're good.
Yeah, exactly. And do you have any thoughts about working with insolvency trustees? So they have to be licensed, right?
Yes, they have to be a licensed insolvency trustee, which is registered with the Office of the Superintendent of Bankruptcy. So they have a governing body that oversees the work that they do to make sure that the honest but unfortunate debtor is being helped while ensuring that the creditors get back what the Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act states they're entitled to.
Okay, yeah, that's really good there, information. Well, I feel like we could hold an entire webinar on just bankruptcy issues, but we'll leave bankruptcy for now. But if you do want to learn more, we do actually have more resources on the bankruptcy process on our website and more resources, of course. So let's move into another scenario about struggling to manage debt. Maybe I'm in a situation where I do have a lot of debt, but I don't realize the extent of trouble that I'm in. Maybe I'm dreading getting help, or maybe I just feel like I could just deal with all of it myself. So what are your thoughts on this?
Well, owing money can be a shameful journey. There's a level of humiliation when you're struggling with it and, thinking back of the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, all that stuff. The first thing I would say is be easy on yourself. Understand that mistakes happen. Most people go through at least 2 financial hiccups in their lifetime. It could be different scenarios, but whether it's due to a marital breakdown, a business failure, a job loss, an illness, there's many, many reasons why someone can find themselves in financial difficulty. The second thing is being brave enough to reach out for help. Our organization does the free money coaching, the credit counseling, and the financial education. And we also can talk through options to assist someone who has debt that they're struggling to manage. I didn't really say it earlier, but the OPD program, Orderly Payment of Debt, that we manage on behalf of the provincial government, what that program does, it's one more options that Albertans can look at before having to consider bankruptcy if they're not able to talk to their bank and work through with a consolidation loan or a refinance. The Orderly Payment of Debt program is a legislative program that provides a court order with protection from your creditors. It's served upon unsecured creditors, including income tax, student loan debt that doesn't even have to be 7 years old, people that you may owe, credit cards, overdrafts, lines of credit, you name it. It all can be included, EI overpayments, all that good stuff. It bundles the debt, it puts a stay in place, and it reduces the interest down to 5% fixed. So it gives you a payment that's manageable. You save a ton of money on interest, and it gives you the relief from all the calls and the looming dread of that debt, weighing you down.
Yeah, so I'm gathering the takeaway from this is you don't have to figure it out alone.
No.
Yeah, exactly. And the earlier you explore your options, and of course you'd reach out to money mentors as well, the more flexibility you might end up having in dealing with these situations before they escalate.
Yeah, it's good to have the perspective and kind of roll through the options so that you can make an informed choice instead of just living in fear of, I don't want to go bankrupt or I'm going to lose everything. Talk to an expert, get the proper advice so that you're prepared and you know kind of, all right, there is a solution here. It's manageable.
Okay, sounds good. So let's say I'm in a situation where I'm someone who's helping others with their legal problems. We like to call these justice navigators at CPLEA, but really it could be just, you're just trying to be a helpful person. Let's say I don't have much knowledge about consumer laws, but what should I know when it comes to helping other people with their consumer or financial problems?
Honestly, it's having the resources at the flip of your fingers to refer accordingly, capturing the basic information so that you're able to refer them to the proper organization, whether it's an LIT, licensed insolvency trustee,
Mhm.
money mentors, or on your own website, the resources that you guys have.
Mhm.
Service Alberta is also a great referral just for one stop, lots of stuff for different topics where people are struggling. So I would just say, be supportive to the client and make sure you understand as much about the issue at hand as you can. And yeah, have those referrals ready.
Yeah, for sure. And just to add on with Service Alberta, they actually have a consumer contact center and also a consumer investigations unit that investigates potential violations of consumer protection and tenancy laws. And you can make a complaint if you feel that a business has breached certain laws. And of course, as you've mentioned, they also have a lot of consumer related resources as well on their website. And we'll pull that up in a little bit near the end of the webinar. So we're getting down to our last mythical scenario here, Eve. Um, there are financial temptations all around us. Okay. It's probably easier now to get into financial debt than any other time in history. And I want to acknowledge that. You have these marketing messages out there, buy, buy, buy. You have your influencers, the YOLO and FOMO, right? Social media, algorithms making suggestions for us whenever we're online, internet websites actually designed to make you buy, right? We were just talking about this a couple of weeks ago at work, but our phones have actually been perfectly engineered to make us addicted to scrolling, right? Retailers banking on our collective nostalgia, right, through their own store layouts and also scents. And I could just go on and on. And it can also be very overwhelming for folks, for all of us. So, do you have any final parting thoughts for people in terms of financial education?
Knowledge is power, number one. And I agree with you. Like 20 years ago, all we had to worry about was the smell of the bakery when we walked into the store, the marketing strategies they used to get us hungry or thirsty to spend more money, right? And now we're just inundated with, if you talk about something near your phone to a friend, you
Yeah.
go on Facebook and all of a sudden there's an ad going through that's about it, or you go into Google and you'll see most related search history come up, and it's things that you talked about, even not so much even Google. So um, advertisers and the corporations that are pushing those goods out to us, it's overwhelming for anyone on a good day. You're probably getting hit with more than 100 ads in a day without even realizing it, and that's without even watching TV,
Yeah.
right? So knowledge is power. Think on it. Don't impulse buy. I always encourage people, if they are someone that does online shopping, because I've been guilty of it. I don't know if you've heard of Shein or Shein or however you say that, the online clothing place. Oh my goodness, it comes through my Facebook feed. Next thing I know, there's like 58 bucks in the cart, and it's so quick to just go click and done, right? So removing your credit card or debit card from those apps is critical to help, just give that second or minute longer of thought instead of just a click, 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 right?
Mhm.
Because it spells trouble for people if they get into that, and it can be an addiction. Online
Mhm.
shopping can absolutely traumatize your finances.
Mhm.
Um, I also suggest removing the apps off your devices if you can. And in the different social media platforms, you can click to eliminate certain ad sources or reduce them from your feed if you're finding that it's too much and you've got too much temptation there hitting you.
Yeah. So in some ways we're trying to make our everyday lives a little bit more analog too, right? Like removing these temptation sources as you can, or avoiding these online sources. Um, and I think I've heard about people actually just like making purchases with cash now too. Like that's one direction that you could take. So whatever you can actually just withdraw from a bank account, that's all you could really use for whatever purchase you need to make. So
And that's a good thing, I think, about online shopping. It used to be you had, well, I guess it's a good and a bad. You
yeah,
used to have a credit card to be able to do it.
yeah,
But now you can use your debit card. At least using the debit card, you're not incurring interest. It's your own money. But in the same respect, having debit and credit, it makes that avenue available to way more people, which could potentially cause budget issues if you're not kind of knowledgeable about how much you're doing it or ways to avoid the temptation.
yeah, for sure. So we're getting on to the final couple minutes here of our webinar. So um, are there any myths that you want Eve to bust live on the spot? So I do encourage our audience members, if you have a question for Eve, please pop that in our I believe is it our chat here, Jessica?
Q&A.
Q&A, sorry, Q&A.
Technical difficulties once again. But FYI, the audience member asked about the link to Money Mentors.
Absolutely. You can call our toll-free number. I believe you're going to put it at the end of the webinar, correct? For Money
Yeah,
Mentor.
yeah, I think we have a link there.
The good news is you do not need an appointment to speak with a counselor. We actually are the ones answering the phones Monday to Thursday, 9 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. and Friday, Saturdays, 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. You'll be connected with a counselor right on the spot. You don't have to book an appointment and wait 4 or 5 days.
Okay, and just to clarify, Eve, as well, for folks that are not too familiar, do you have to be in debt to contact Money Mentors, or?
Most of our clients, that's the majority of who we help and serve. But
Yeah.
no, if you could be an 18-year-old person that, just starting out on your own, wanting some budgeting tips, wanting to learn about credit. You could be someone heading into retirement that maybe your income's going to be dropping and you just want a way to tackle your debt on your own because you've got the means right now. We can coach and guide you through those kind of things. And the other thing to keep in mind, I should put a plug out there. We are creating a new online learning management program that's going to be launched in the fall at some point, where people can go on and take free courses in this learning management system on all sorts of varying financial topics, from understanding credit, teaching your children good money habits, money and relationships, self-employment, all sorts of topics. And we also, through Eventbrite, if you Google Money Mentors and Eventbrite or Eventbrite and then look up Money Mentors, we have free webinars every Wednesday evening on a different financial topic. And they start at 7 until 8. They're free. You can just register through Eventbrite and join in. You can leave your camera off if you're more comfortable with that, but we're here to support you in any way we can.
Okay, fantastic. So, there are no further questions here. We could actually wrap up a little bit early. So we do encourage everyone to refer to Money Mentors Alberta for debt help with certified financial counselors, for more financial education, of course, money tips, resources, and more. So Jessica, just pop that link up there if you want to contact them. If you want to learn about money-related laws, of course, and avoid those mo money, mo problems situations, there are plenty of resources on the CPLEA website to refer to. We also have a Help with Debt Alberta self-assessment tool for folks to use as well, to help identify references and other avenues of help for certain debt-related legal issues. If you're looking for legal information and also help on consumer matters, you're not alone. We have a link that Jessica's going to throw up there to some of the clinics around the province that may be able to help. As I've already mentioned, there's government-run services out there. So if you're in Alberta, there's Service Alberta and Red Tape Reduction, which has consumer protection resources. And of course, their consumer contact center that I had mentioned earlier. And for legal help with debt problems, you might also want to look into the Edmonton Community Legal Center, or ECLC's Consumer Debt Negotiation Project. And as I mentioned, there are also other places around Alberta for legal help with the various community legal clinics, duty counsel at the courts, student legal clinics at the University of Alberta, and also the University of Calgary. So I'd like to say, stay in touch with CPLEA. You could visit our website, subscribe to our monthly e-newsletter, or follow us on social media. And also join us for our next webinar, sneak peek into CPLEA's Justice Navigator training program that's taking place on Wednesday, May 20th at noon. And I do want to say that this is the last substantive legal information webinar of the season, and we hope you enjoyed our myth-busting series. We'll be back in the fall with a new theme and possibly some new memes. And last but not least, we would like to thank Eve and Money Mentors for joining us today. And of course, thank all of you for joining us today. Have a great day.
Thanks for having us.